Being detained, I need your driver's license, please, for citing for spectating on racing and burning out.
Who says I was spectating?
We have you on video, sir. I need your license, please.
So it's illegal to watch?
Yes, sir. It's a moving violation.
It's a moving violation?
Yes, sir. I need your license, sir.
So you're telling me it's...
I'm not going to ask you again, sir. I understand you can record. I'm recording as well. I need your license, please, and then we can discuss further.
Okay, so you're telling me that if I do not give you my license, you'll arrest me?
Subject to arrest, yes, sir.
Okay.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Southern Draw Law. My name is James White, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, former police officer. Today's video comes to us from a YouTube channel called the United States of Matt, M-A-A-T. Now, I don't know anything about this user, but the video was referred to me by a subscriber of mine named Patrick. So I'd like to thank Patrick for sending this along. I do think it's a good opportunity to talk about vagueness and constitutionality of statutes, and then we'll go through some of the things that the police do when they are afforded too much discretion. And so what we're going to do is take a look at a video of, I assume, Matt being stopped and cited for being a spectator of an illegal street race. And so it actually arises from an event that's pretty popular around the country called Cars and Coffee. Now, my son is 25. He's a car guy. He's a motorcycle guy. He regularly attends Cars and Coffee. So I know about the event, but I've never been there. From what I understand, it's just car people gathering and talking about their cars. There's nothing about it that would indicate anything nefarious or anything intentional as far as street racing goes. That said, you get car guys together with fast cars and they're going to try to outrun each other. That's the way it works. But we're going to go through the video. We're going to talk about some of the statutes and see where we land on the legality of it. Now, I have edited the video down to the parts that I think are relevant for the purposes of our discussion, but you should head over to Matt's channel, check out the video in its entirety, and give him credit for sharing it. With that, let's check it out.
This is a dope little MR2. I'm being what?
You're being detained. I need your driver's license, please, for citing for spectating on racing and burning out.
Who says I was spectating?
We have you on video, sir. I need your license, please.
So it's illegal to watch?
Yes, sir. It's a moving violation.
It's a moving violation?
Yes, sir. I need your license, sir.
Okay, and so you're telling me it's...
I'm not going to ask you again, sir. I understand you can record. I'm recording as well. I need your license, please, and then we can discuss further.
Okay, so you're telling me that if I do not give you my license, you'll arrest me?
Subject to arrest, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, you've got 3 on the other side walking westbound on Lime.
And what statute is that?
I'll look up the exact statute.
It's under threat of arrest. I will provide my information.
Thanks, sir.
What's your name and badge number?
Deputy Calmus, ID 20186. And Mr. Rayner, is this your current address?
Yep.
What is it?
That's it.
What is it, sir?
You have the ID right there.
I'm asking you to confirm your address, sir.
It's whatever's there.
Perfect.
So we have a car show, but it's illegal to spectate somehow. Excuse me, can I ask you something? Sure. So we came to a car show.
I have no knowledge about what you stopped for.
Were you stopping other people for the same thing?
I'm standing right here talking to you.
What's your name and badge number?
Schultz 30545.
30545. Schultz 30545.
Okay, so at some point here, now some of the video's been edited out, so we don't know. At one point, Matt says that he leaves 7 minutes later. We don't know what happened during that 7 minutes, but we do have the benefit of having the footage up to that point that Matt has recorded on his camera. So we're going to look at the Florida statute. This is an actual law in Florida, and we're going to walk through it here. So let's pull up the Florida statute for being a spectator at a race event. Now, this is the problem when you give police officers who don't understand how to interpret statutory language the ability to use their discretion in determining whether somebody is a spectator. So one of the problems for law enforcement here is that each one of these things is defined very specifically under the statute. And so we're going to walk through each definition and see what it actually means. So as applies to this case, there'll be a couple different things that we'll highlight here. 316.191, racing on highways, street takeovers, and stunt driving. The law says a coordinated street takeover means 10 or more vehicles operated in an organized manner to effect a street takeover. A drag race means the operation of 2 or more motor vehicles from a point side by side at accelerating speeds in a competitive attempt to outdistance each other, or the operation of 1 or more motor vehicles over a common selected course from the same point to the same point for the purposes of comparing the relative speeds or power of acceleration of such motor vehicle or motor vehicles within a certain distance or time limit. So again, there has to be some coordinated structure there. I'm going to race you from this stoplight to this stoplight, which is a quarter of a mile. We're going to see how long it takes us, right? It has to be coordinated, and you have to be able to prove that if you're going to charge somebody with it. Race means the use of 1 or more motor vehicles in competition arising from a challenge to demonstrate superiority of a motor vehicle or driver and the acceptance or competitive response to the challenge, either through a prior arrangement or an immediate response in which the competitor attempts to outgain or outdistance another motor vehicle to prevent another motor vehicle from passing to arrive at a given destination ahead of another motor vehicle or motor vehicles, or to test the physical stamina or endurance of drivers over long-distance driving routes. A race may be prearranged or may occur through a competitive response to conduct on the part of 1 or more drivers, which, under the totality of the circumstances, can reasonably be interpreted as a challenge to race. And then the important one for our discussion is spectator. So the very specific definition of spectator under the law, it's under subsection I. Spectator means any person who is knowingly present at and views a drag race or street takeover when such presence is the result of an affirmative choice to attend or participate in the event. For the purposes of determining whether or not an individual is a spectator, the finders of fact, that would be the judge or the jury, shall consider the relationship between the motor vehicle operator and the individual, evidence of gambling or betting on the outcome of the event, filming or recording the event, or posting the event on social media, and any other factor that would tend to show knowing attendance or participation.
You're burning out of there, and then we'll do the spectator citations last if they're still there.
Careful.
Add 1 to the units that are going to be issuing you spectator citations. Come in through the plaza Because if you come in on, say, Road 7, they're just going to run back to their cars. They're not going to be able to grab. So just come in through the plaza, and as they run to their cars, just grab them there.
Deputy County Sheriff's Office, you're being stopped for spectating, racing, and burning out. Need your ID, please. That's right. There's your license. Copy citation as well as the traffic ticket. Okay? Thank you. I'll take care of the citation itself. Okay? Have a question for me, sir?
Yeah, I do. I've got plenty of questions. But first and foremost, so like how I'm recording you right now in a public space, which is my rights to do so according to the Constitution. My question.
Citing the Constitution, I told you is okay for your record.
Let me ask the question. So if there's a car behind me, like that Camaro that is behind me right now, you're telling me I can be cited for recording that?
When there's an organized event like that, yes.
What do you mean? Well, the whole point of the event was for people to record, so I was in there recording. So is that against the law?
No, not until they're actually on here, street racing and whatnot, that you're actively participating, sir.
Hold on, let me see.
And you were asking for the statute. The statute's on the citation itself.
Okay, so you said when they were street
I've already
racing.
answered your question, sir.
No, I'm just making sure. You
Yeah,
said when they were
have a good
street
day,
racing, that's what made it illegal, right?
I've already answered your question, sir.
Street racing.
There was, sir. Several cars were pulled over down the street. They also burned out in front of you that I'm sure you have on your video.
I don't have any of that on camera.
Okay, that's fine.
And if you had that on your recording, then you're lying.
Okay, sir. Again, on the citation, you have 3 options to take care of the ticket. Pay the fine, let you go to traffic support, or let you go to traffic school. All right? Have a good day.
So what the cops have done is they think they're smart. They think they found a loophole in the drag racing statute where they believe that anybody who's standing out and happens to be recording something that occurs in public can be conflated with intentionally attending a drag racing event or intentionally attending a street takeover. And so where you and I might say, hey, James, we're going to get 10 of our fastest cars. We're going to meet up at the Walmart parking lot tonight and we're going to run them. Now, anybody that gets invited to that, posts it on social media, comes there specifically to film that thing, whatever, that would be considered an example of being an unlawful spectator at an organized drag racing event. Simply going to a car show, realizing that people were out being loud with their cars and running them fast up and down the street and popping out on the street corner to take pictures of it or record it is not intentional attendance at a drag racing event. A car show is not a drag racing event. So the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to look up the Cars and Coffee website and try to see what its mission statement is. Now, I haven't looked at this. I don't know what their mission statement is. I only know Cars and Coffee through the eyes of my son, who's relayed to me that it's essentially a gathering of people to drink coffee and talk about their cars. But keep in mind that in order to convict somebody of this, you have to be able to prove the elements of the underlying drag race. You have to be able to prove that there was a drag race, right? So let's look at the Cars and Coffee website and see what we can come up with. Okay, we got Cars and Coffee of Palm Beach. All right, so they do it monthly. Spectators and passengers are free. And as you can see here on the main picture, they're just people standing around nice cars. Maybe that's a McLaren. I don't know what it is. I'm not really a car guy. I mean, this is just a car show. There's nothing about this that would suggest that that there's racing. About. Let's click the About page. About Cars and Coffee. 11 years ago, Cars and Coffee Palm Beach founder John Zylinga arranged a small car meet in Boynton Beach, Florida. As a lifelong car enthusiast and full-time first responder, he quickly gained a loyal, diverse, and enthusiastic following. Little did he know that within just a couple of years, the show would outgrow its location and blossom into one of the country's largest monthly car meets. So it's just a car show. I mean, I don't know how you even make a prosecutorial argument that Cars and Coffee is a coordinated drag race or street takeover. In fact, I don't think you can. And so I don't know where they are able to get the idea that anything about this was organized for the purposes of racing or drag racing. So I think what you have here is you have a serious abuse of discretion. If you looked at Matt's footage, there's nothing about the raw footage that would suggest that any of the participants even know each other. It's not like what he observed on camera, which ostensibly would be what they would need to be able to prove that he was a spectator. They would have to subpoena his camera evidence, or they would have to provide their own camera evidence. And the only thing they could possibly have would be him standing there with a video camera recording what we saw on the camera. And so if that's all they have, then we can use the information that's on Matt's camera to figure out what exactly he was observing or spectating. And so I didn't see anything in there that a person would be able to use to prove that any of the people driving fast, slow, beside each other were moving from one point to another in a coordinated way, were trying to outrun the other one. You got people that just independently are driving fast. But again, the spectator statute, the violation of the spectator statute is about street takeovers and drag racing. You have a bunch of independent people that decided to go fast in their cars, and maybe they're guilty of reckless or careless driving, but I don't know how you can make the argument with a straight face that somebody standing on the corner, and there were literally 50 of them, and you can hear from the radio traffic of the body cam of the police officer that all they wanted to do was round up anybody on the corner or anybody out recording cameras, and they're basically going to punish them with the process. And what I'm guessing is the problem here is that you've got a very wealthy and affluent area of West Palm Beach, Florida, where wealthy citizens have reached out to the sheriff and said, hey, these cars and coffee people monthly running their cars up and down the street and acting crazy are a problem. And so the sheriff, in response to that, is going out and trying to make his constituents happy. The problem is there's a fine line to be drawn between making a retaliatory arrest for a First Amendment protected activity and enforcing a legitimate law. And because cops only know enough about the law to be dangerous and only know enough about the law to not understand the law, you're giving these guys way too much discretion. Now, there was a case in Florida called Wells where a defendant was charged with drag racing and actually had his conviction overturned for constitutional vagueness as it applied to him. So when you look at the constitutionality of a law, you can challenge the law based on its application to everybody. That would be like an on its face challenge. Or you can say the law may be able to be applied constitutionally to other people, but as it was applied to me, it was unconstitutional. And the Wells case demonstrates that idea. So let's take a look at the Wells case, and then we'll kind of talk about how that applies to this. So State of Florida versus Jamie Wells, it was September 12th, 2007. And so Jamie Wells was charged with racing on the highway. He filed a motion to dismiss challenging the constitutionality of the statute. The trial court granted the motion and found that Section 316.191 was unconstitutional on both vagueness and overbreadth grounds. The state appealed the trial court ruling, and then this is the District Court of Appeals for Florida's 4th District. And so the district court affirmed in part and reversed in part. Basically, they said that Wells was in an incident where a law enforcement officer reported witnessing Wells driving his Chevy Corvette at a high rate of speed. Another vehicle was following behind Wells at a high rate of speed. They were not driving side by side. The vehicles were traveling at a maximum speed of 130 miles per hour in a 65 mile per hour zone, and they were weaving through traffic. The vehicles eventually slowed, pulled side by side, and accelerated back to 90 miles an hour. So he was charged based on, I guess, their positional proximity with racing. So essentially, he files a motion to dismiss and declare the statute unconstitutional. He contended that the racing should be dismissed because 191 was unconstitutional on 3 bases. First, he asserted that it was void for vagueness, and specifically alleged that the term race was constitutionally infirm because of its definition, which included vague terms like outgain and outdistance that could apply to entirely lawful conduct. So he also said that it was overbroad for encompassing constitutionally protected conduct. That would be like the recording part, right? In my estimation, I think that would be a good argument for Matt here, because you can stand on the street corner and see a public event taking place and record it. That's a First Amendment right. So the court goes through its analysis here, and it says overall vague statute is one that fails to give adequate notice of what conduct is prohibited, and which, because of its imprecision, may also invite arbitrary and discriminatory enforcement. And that's what's happening here. The court concluded that the trial court did not err by finding that the statute was vague and declaring it unconstitutional, both facially and as applied to Wells' case, because by defining the term racing as the use of one or more motor vehicles in an attempt to outgain or outdistance the other, the legislature rendered the statute vague because the outgain and outdistance term could encompass passing, accelerating from a stop, and countless other legal maneuvers, and illegal and otherwise prescribed maneuvers such as speeding, which drivers employ in their daily lives. So by failing to include an element of competition in its out-of-the-ordinary definition of race, encompasses an endless range of otherwise legal conduct. Now, in response to Wells, the statute has since been updated. So we now know that because of Wells, there was a statutory amendment somewhere along the way, because the statutory language of race now includes competition and challenge, which is really what the Court of Appeals took issue with in Wells. You have to prove those elements exist before you can charge someone and find probable cause to charge someone with spectating the event. You have to prove that the outlawed event happened. So I don't know how they get there here. I really don't. And this is what happens when you give law enforcement officers too much discretion to figure out what the statutory language actually means. So this statute was written in one way, and the court struck it down as unconstitutional, and the legislature went and fixed it. The problem is they added additional elements that the state has to prove in order to convict somebody of it, and there seems to be at least no effort on the part of the police to figure out whether those things actually happened. And so, in my opinion, the West Palm Beach area sheriff's deputies have worked themselves into a situation where they're subject to suit for an arrest that both lacks probable cause and seems to be in retaliation for a First Amendment protected activity. In closing, this is the danger of allowing cops who barely understand the law, and some don't even make any effort to understand the law, to try to interpret statutory language. It's also the byproduct of having non-lawyers in the legislature writing laws that they don't understand. And one of the major problems with the entire legislative complex is that, we get on here on YouTube and we talk about, well, you're law enforcement, you're not feelings enforcement. But the truth is, if you understand lobbying and you understand how bills get passed and you understand how bills even get introduced, it's because of some person in the community that goes to a person who said, if you vote for me, I'll do what you want me to do, right? So you got a person who remembers that Joe Blow politician said 2 years ago, if they would vote for him, he would do what they wanted. And so they take their feelings as a constituent to Joe Blow politician and they say, I feel this way about this. This is a problem. We want you to introduce a law that would remedy this problem. And so I understand that law enforcement is not feelings enforcement, but if you understand laws, you understand that they are the byproduct of problems that people perceive based on their feelings. So really, on some level, most laws are born out of feelings by constituents. This is one of those things. People in the community have been pissed off about the fact that people are racing cars and they're driving their miserable asses to work and they're watching these kids gather at Cars and Coffee at 7 a.m. and they're thinking, I'm going into work on a Saturday to make the money to pay for my fancy house in West Palm Beach. And this kid's sitting down here with $100,000 car and then they're going to race it up and down the street and I've got to go to work today. And that kind of stuff bothers people. If you really understand this sort of enforcement, it's being driven by these wealthy taxpayers in these communities where they're putting pressure on the sheriff to do something about it. And the sheriff is condoning and sponsoring the violation of people's First and Fourth Amendment rights. And so whenever you have feelings-induced laws, and then you combine that with cops who don't understand the laws, and then you combine that with the egos of the cop, and you combine that with the politician that wants to get reelected, that's how you end up with a shit show like what we have here. So what's going to take is somebody like Matt to sue these guys and slap them on the wrist, and they have to pay out a big settlement that comes out of those taxpayers' pocket. Until enough lawsuits get paid out over this kind of stuff, you're not going to see it stop. Anyway, that's all for this one, guys. Thanks for checking it out. Please remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment on the video. Check out some of the other videos on the channel. Leave a comment on there as well. Until I see you again, take care. Always film your interactions with the police and keep your evidence to yourself.